So make sure you're on this tab here called the TGE Liquidity Stress Test. So what this really says is, on TGE, when we launch our token for the very first time and we put together our decentralized exchange for enabling trading on Uniswap, whatever your preference is, these are some things that we want to pay attention to. Now let's look at this over here. So over here, we note that we don't have anything unlocked on TGE except for some of these areas over here. So the decentralized exchange liquidity, this cannot be sold. That's going to go into the pool. The centralized exchange listings, this isn't something going to someone who will sell. That will also go to the centralized exchanges. The airdrop, this could be sold. The public allocation here, some of these could also be sold because people will buy the public, and then on launch pads and things, then they'll sell at 2x's and these kind of things based on what their preferences are. So as I just look at this roughly, we can come up with a really quick calculation here. This is just some rough percentages I'm putting in to show you how the charts work. But if you look at our public, we might say 25% of those individuals might sell on the launch, okay? If we look at airdrop, I would say this would probably be closer to 75% of those individuals that would sell, okay? So we could see here now, look at the scenario we've created with having this airdrop right here of 75% of a sell rate, okay? And so now if we just look at what's actually going on by setting up this chart, okay, and you can see this over here, you can see that, hey, if more of these tokens are sold, okay, then we're going to have a more of a price impact over time, right? So for example, if 60% of the tokens out there in the beginning are sold, it's going to drop the price by like 80%. That'll be ridiculous, right? So actually having these unlocked and potentially having them sold could be extremely, challenging for a project, especially, right? Now, if this were zero, watch how it changes that much dramatically in these percentages, right? So it actually makes a really big, significant deal on what you release in the very beginning as you launch this token, okay? That's when the pool is first starting. That's when it's getting established. You don't want to just disrupt that with tons of selling pressure. Ideally, you want buying pressure to come in, right? And also, the more you actually dump out in these tokens in the beginning, the more buying pressure you need to kind of counteract that, right? So for example here, this is showing that if like 100,000 tokens are sold, 100 million, we're going to need like over 450,000 to counteract this, right? And that's going to be quite a bit of cash to be able to bring in buying volume wise, positive buying pressure to overcome any of this potential selling pressure that can occur. All right, and so you could also see here the sell pressure percentages. It's also going to show you, the amount of, the resulting price too as this happens. Okay, so as for example, you have more selling pressure, it's going to start to degrade your price that much faster, and you'll start to notice this. This, by the way, is all a function of the liquidity pool, okay, of this $600,000, okay? So now let's say, what if we had more in our pool? What might this look like, okay? I'm going to keep the exact same settings, and I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to change this from 30% now. We're going to make this to 60%. So we're just going to double this, okay? Now, I'm not saying this is what you'd want to do. I'm showing you this as examples. Now, if you note here, now we're able to actually absorb even more selling pressure because of how we set up this pool, okay? Now, it's also going to take less selling pressure then, less buying pressure to overcome some of these tokens that are now able to be sold. And this is also really important.